Red Cross in a situation like tornadoes we've had this week is really more than coffee.
It is. It certainly is. I wish everyone would understand it that way.
What is it that you can do for people?
We can totally rehabilitate a person if necessary, if this is what they need.
Well, let's take the average family that has had their home destroyed or heavily damaged. What do you do to help this family?
Well, the first phase that we look at is to try to take care of the masses. We do not necessarily separate them, but if we can take care of 100 families in a given situation for 12 to 24 hours up to whatever time necessary, we need to take care of the mass volume in the beginning.
Doing what?
The basic needs: food, shelter, and clothing.
How do you go about providing food, shelter, and clothing in an area that may be damaged by a tornado?
We try to locate an area like a school with a cafeteria where we could utilize the professional people to prepare the food. We have blankets and cots stored in different locations around the country where we can move all of this material into a given location within 6 hours or less.
Okay, you provide for their basic needs. The first day, the first night is over. Does it end there?
No, we start rehabilitation. Instantly we start rehabilitation. What we need to do is to restore this family, totally restore the family, with all the basic necessities of life.
What would you provide a given family?
Here again, food, shelter, clothing, furniture. You could classify it in 6 different classifications if you would like to. Housing if necessary. Rebuild a home if to that extent. The total, everything that a family needs.
In other words, if the clothes were destroyed in a tornado, new clothes would be forthcoming.
That is correct. We, in the past, have been able to purchase for families in need new clothing. And we use what we call a standardized assistance plan. The same clothing, the same amount, I should say, that's given a 12-year-old in Montgomery is given a 12-year-old in Los Angeles and vice versa.
We're talking about new clothes too, aren't we?
That is correct. We, and I say this with no, and please, I would hope not to hurt anyone's feeling. By the time you take used clothing, sort them out, try to meet family needs, it would take so much more labor and expense. It's cheaper to go out and buy new clothing than to utilize donated.
What about, say, housing, rebuilding or providing new housing? Is this in the form of a loan?
No, everything we give, everything we do is an outright gift. Now, I'm not saying that in a given situation that we would build a person a $30,000 home. Depending on his income and financial condition, we would expect him to do whatever he can without creating a burden on his family. Then we would meet the balance.
How do you face a budget on something like this? How do you pay for it?
Well, of course, through United Way, the bulk of our dollars are raised throughout this country. And nationally, every community contributes its funds, a certain proportion, to our national organization. They handle our disaster expenditure. Currently, it's running about $24 million a year. So every community throughout this country makes their annual amount necessary to meet these needs based on past experience.
So in other words, if Alabama this year, heaven forbid, had a hurricane and 5 tornadoes and you only had enough money in the coffers to handle 1 or 2 of those circumstances, money would come from elsewhere in the country to help out.
That is correct. And of course, since we're speaking of this, if we have a job in the very beginning of a year that would cost us $15 million, we cannot go out to the American public in the beginning to ask them to contribute additional dollars. Normally it's when, the till gets real low. We have to go to the public and ask them, to come through and help us meet human needs.
Who provides the teams to work on this recovery? Are they just citizens?
Volunteers, just like you. I'm sure that you've had excellent training and will do an excellent job working in conditions of this nature.
So you've got volunteers working, you've got volunteers providing money, and they're helping people who are just their neighboring citizens who need help.
That is correct. See, we're talking about 180 volunteers to one paid staff. So there's no way that we could operate in Monroeville today or here in Montgomery without the volunteers.
How does your work compare in Monroeville and Montgomery right now under both tornado circumstances?
Well, I could give you two sets of figures, and immediately you would say it's about 50-50. We have roughly twice the number of homes destroyed in Monroe County as we have here in Montgomery. But you look at it from the total damage, I would say it would be 300% greater.
Do you have a figure off the top of your head right now about the number of homes in your final count? Have you taken account yet in both areas?
Yes, we have. Of course, it's important to do this in the very beginning where we can staff our operations accordingly. Of course, we're anxious to close these operations as quickly as possible, but they cannot be closed in a 24-hour period. It's very important for us to secure a relatively accurate assessment of damage. And
as far as the Red Cross is concerned, will you be in there for months?
Yes. I would say that it would take us a minimum of 30 days here in Montgomery. We'll be doing some aspect on it 30 days from today. Monroeville, depending on the number of rebuilds we're involved in, it's going to be a 6-week to 2-month operation.
Good point. Okay, Victor.